Alright, fellow Slayers, time for the final episode of Review the Day, which is Consequences. Buffy has a nightmare in which she tries to escape murky waters while the murdered Finch pulls her down. Finally reaching the surface, Buffy sees Faith, who immediately pushes her fellow Slayer back underwater. After waking up, Buffy wanders down to the family room, where her mother's watching a news report about the discovery of Finch's body. At the library, Wesley orders Buffy and Faith to investigate Finch's murder, much to Buffy's chagrin, though Faith acts indifferent. During their discussion, Cordelia enters the library to check out some books for an assignment. She takes an immediate interest in Wesley, who doesn't realize how young she is until Giles and the others fill him in. After heading out, Buffy tries to convince Faith to come clean and confess her crime to Giles. Faith reminds Buffy that they were both involved, so if she goes down, she's taking Buffy with her. Buffy then spots Willow and tries to talk to her. However, Willow is still stung by Buffy's recent behavior in which she's hanging out with Faith more and spending less time with Willow. Meanwhile, Mayor Wilkins shreds all of Finch's files that contain anything related to their dirty work. Mr. Trick listens as Mayor Wilkins wonders if Finch was conspiring against him somehow, and ends up feeling miserable that now he'll never know and won't have the chance to scold him. Trick cheers the mayor up by telling him that Finch's autopsy report showed that there were wooden splinters in his stab wound. This, combined with the fact that the scene of the murder was also the location of vampire activity, makes Mayor Wilkins realize that Buffy or Faith were responsible, and cheers up at the thought that at least one of them may be sent down for murder. Later that night, Buffy and Faith sneak into Finch's office at Sunnydale City Hall to see if they can find any info that may explain why he was in the alley that night. They notice that almost all of his files are gone, which leads Buffy to believe that a cover-up may be in the works. Just as they're heading out, Mayor Wilkins and Mr. Trick enter the building on the opposite end of the hallway. Seeing them together and realize that Wilkins is working against them, Buffy and Faith duck back into Finch's office, waiting for Mayor and Trick to pass by before running for the exit. Outside, Buffy expresses her concern of Faith's apparent guilt-free conscience. She doesn't believe that Faith is perfectly okay with murdering a man, but Faith says otherwise. Faith believes that their nightly deeds as Slayers should put them above the law. They've been chosen and are better than others and don't have to obey the same rules. When Buffy returns home, she's greeted by her mother Joyce and Detective Stein, who has come to ask her a few questions about the night of the murder. Buffy lies complete ignorance to everything related to the deputy mayor. Detective Stein leaves and visits Faith at her motel room, where he gets a similar story. Meanwhile, Buffy goes to Willow's house, where she starts to tell Willow what happened, but Willow is upset about Buffy recently ignoring her and speaks harsh about how Buffy is deserting her for Faith. This causes Buffy to burst in tears and tell Willow she's in trouble. She confesses all to Willow, and advises Buffy to go to Giles. When Buffy arrives at the library, she finds out that Faith has gone there first and pinned the murder on Buffy. Buffy tries to convince Giles, but otherwise he is implacable. After Faith leaves, Giles assures Buffy that he recognized immediately that Faith was lying, but feigned belief in order to prevent Faith from bulging or completely breaking. Giles tells Buffy that this is the first time this sort of thing has happened. Civilians are sometimes caught in crossfire from battle, so normally the Watchers Council would investigate and deal out punishment if they feel it's necessary. However, Giles has no intention of informing the Council given Faith's current mental state, so he and Buffy agree only to share what's happened with the others in the group. What they don't realize is that Wesley has overheard the whole conversation from outside the office. Immediately afterward, he calls the Council to alert them of the crime. Snitch. The next morning, Buffy talks to Xander, Willow, and Giles about what they should do with Faith. Feeling has a special connection with Faith, Xander offers to talk to her. The others think that all of them, Xander knows her the least, so he reveals they slept together. Buffy tells her that Faith doesn't think well of the men she slept with. Giles looks uncomfortable, and Willow looks a bit in shock. Xander goes to the bathroom and cries. Despite this, Xander heads towards Faith's motel room. There, Xander tries to help her see what she did was wrong. Faith steps Xander onto the bed, wraps her hands around Xander's neck, and asphyxiates him. Before she could kill him, Faith is distracted by a sound at her doorway. She turns her head just in time to see Angel swing a bat into her face. Wow. Faith regains consciousness chained up in the Crawford Street mansion. She tries to come on to Angel, but leaves her there alone momentarily, going to talk with Buffy in the garden. Angel tells her he believes that Faith is more dangerous than ever, now that she's experienced murder by her own hands. At City Hall, the mayor is very angry to find out that via surveillance tape that not only did Buffy and Faith successfully break in, but they also saw him with Trick. Now that the Slayers know that Wilkins is a bad guy, and it's clear neither of them will be going to jail for Finch's murder due to lack of evidence, the mayor demands that Trick take care of them soon or else. Angel attempts to get Faith to come to reason and tells her how he can relate to her sinful desires. Although Faith initially remains insolent, it seems as if Angel is slowly persuading her. Just as he tells her that she does not have to go into the darkness, Wesley and several other men crash into the mansion. The men subdue Angel while Wesley unlocks Faith's chains. The Watcher then restrains Faith with his own cuffs, informing her that she will be brought to face the council. In the truck, Faith tricks one of the men into getting closer. She then captures her, threatens to snap his neck until Wesley frees her from the restraints. Wesley follows her orders. As soon as she's freed, Faith knocks him to the floor and jumps out of the back of the truck. Buffy returns to the mansion to find Faith gone and an Angel immobilized on the floor. Shortly afterwards, Giles, Xander, and Will arrive at the mansion, where Angel informs them of Wesley taking Faith. When they try to formally plan to save Faith, Will interrupts her learned objection to the idea of saving a guilty murderess who has just tried to kill Xander. Bruce Wesley then arrives and tells them that Faith has escaped. His interference only increases the Scooby's hostility towards them. Buffy goes to docks to find Faith on one of the boats, ready to flee the country. Buffy tries one last time to turn Faith around and get help. They argue again, but this is cut short by a surprise ambush. Shrek and several of his vampire cohorts knock Buffy to the ground with a large crate, and she is pinned down by it. With Buffy down, Faith attempts to fight the vampires by herself. Shrek tries to kill Buffy, but, after just the last of his henchmen, Faith sees Shrek about to bite Buffy's neck and stakes him in the back, much to the vampire's surprise. At the library, Buffy talks to Giles about Faith's heroic act. They believe that there may still be hope for Faith. Meanwhile, Mayor Wilkins gets a visit from Faith at his office. With Shrek out of the picture, Faith says he must have a job available. Intrigued, Mayor Wilkins lets her into the office, shutting the door behind her. Dun dun dun. So now let's take a look at some continuity surrounding this episode. Buffy has a nightmare of Faith drowning her. Years later, Faith almost drowns Buffy out of frustration in No Future for You, Part 3. Cordelia and Wesley meet each other in this episode. The two will become each other's superficial love interests until graduation to Part 2. Later, on Angel, the two become very close friends and co-workers. Wesley is embarrassed to be attracted to his student, Cordelia, whom Faith calls jailbait. Though, if the date of her birthday is the same as their date, then Cordelia would already be aged 18 by the time she met Wesley. Investigating Finch's death, a detective asks the witness what time she heard the scream. Likely when Buffy said, "Faith, no!" Buffy seeing Mayor Wilkins and Mr. Trick together provides the Scoobies with their first concrete evidence that the mayor is not what he seems and will become a problem. Faith says to Buffy, "We are the law." Buffy later declares herself as the law in supernatural matters. Finch's death is the third murder investigation which Buffy has been involved in less than 2 years. She was previously suspected in the deaths of the robot Ted and fellow Slayer Kendra. Additionally, both the previous cases were investigated by the same detective, Paul Stein. Buffy will be investigated again for the death of vampires in human form in Freefall, Part 2. Willow tells Buffy that she and Michael are still trying to de-rat Amy, who transformed herself in the episode Gingerbread. In response to Willow's idea of talking to Faith as a group, Buffy recalls the intervention the Scoobies had with her in the episode Revelations. Xander reveals to Scoobies his sexual encounter with Faith in the Zeppo. Angel seems to be able to get through to Faith, a theme that we picked up much later when the two meet in LA in the episode 5x5. The events of this episode are one of the primary reasons Wesley is eventually dismissed from the Watchers Council, as revealed in the episode Parting Gifts. So now let's take a look at some production notes. Although credited, Seth Green does not appear in this episode. This is the only time during Season 3 that a main character is absent. The telephone that Wesley dials when contacting the Watchers Council appears to be a correct one, which is unusual for television and film. The international dialing code from the US to UK is 011, 44 num 44 telephone number. On screen, Wesley's experiencing dialed 11114, styling 1144. And now finally, let's take a look at some pop culture references. Cordelia asked Giles for books on psychoanalysts Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung. Faith compares Alan Finch's goodness with pacifist Mahatma Gandhi. Faith says she hopes Evil takes MasterCard, referencing the credit card company. Bub describes Faith's date as Zippity Doo Dah, a song from the film Song of the South. So overall, I think this episode is kind of interesting, and yeah, Faith is definitely not hanging out with the wrong people now, so there's that. Yeah. So overall, I give Consequences 4 vampire steaks out of 5. Anyway, tune in tomorrow as we take a look at the next episode, Doppelgangland. So, until then, here endeth the lesson.